in an age where data protection is so important, it can actually pose a real problem when it comes to looking after people with additional needs. And this was an issue that was recognised by some island police officers and which has been solved by a local software company. So we're joined in the studio this afternoon by Sgt Sgt Corran, who's trying to keep everybody under control. Graham, how are you doing?
Not doing too well at that last.
Yeah, I didn't like to mention it, but
no.
Could try harder. PC Mike Griffiths is with us as well. Mike, lovely to see you again. And PC Paddy Moore, who everyone's surprised has been allowed near a live microphone. Not us though, Paddy.
Good afternoon.
Good. Oh, look at that. We're also going to meet Alexandra Koyfman from PDMS in just a moment. And I love the fact that throughout this, Alexandra has just been sitting there very quietly with her headphones on.
I think she would be classed as the well-behaved one. I think she probably would today.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this issue then. I wonder, first of all, where the idea or the realisation that there was a need for something to solve this issue first came from. Mike?
Myself, Paddy and all our colleagues, to be fair, we deal with vulnerable people on a regular basis. It's a big part of our job. We are tending, I think there's around about 80, is it right, Alexandra? About 80 at the moment, isn't it? We recognised, we did a survey and went through our statistics, and there's about 80 cases. 100. I'm getting pointed at here. 100 cases that we deal with on a monthly basis, where vulnerable people are out there in our community.
And when you're talking about vulnerable, what sort of things are you actually meaning?
Well, it's such an easy throwaway word, but we're talking about people who go missing, people who struggle with their mental health. The policing has changed. We incorporate so many different aspects of everyday life nowadays. Mental health is something that we really do have an issue with on the Isle of Man, in that we try and support as much as we can, and we're coming across it on a daily basis. So myself and Paddy, we're dealing with several people on a regular basis, and every time we dealt with them, it was a struggle for them and for us, but mainly for them. So we decided that we would try and hold some information, so every time we dealt with these people, then it would make it easier for them and their families. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to keep that, as we're only allowed to keep crime data in the police. So we struggled on how we can keep this data, and that's where the idea sort of sprang from, really. And we spoke to Chris at PDMS as I was doing some work with his daughter on a small project she had running, and it's sort of gone from there, really. So yeah, as I said, it's there to help people.
And Mike, you talked about crime data. So, Graham, there is a real restriction on the information that police officers are allowed to keep hold of.
Absolutely. We, as police officers, only look at the stuff that we deal with in respect of crime and intelligence. And there's a very big, there's lots of laws that govern those aspects of data. So for us to hold personal data on people that isn't connected to that is just outlawed completely. And for all the right reasons as well, because people are entitled to their own privacy and their own data, and quite rightly, people these days are very aware of who can have their data and who can do what with it. It's a Facebook generation, isn't it, these days, and anything you put online is there for everyone to see, but likewise, when you want your privacy, you tend to try and guarantee it.
And so Paddy or someone else is in the community alongside Mike there, and we're talking about information. We've talked about the nature of crime information, but this is different information that might be helpful to the community members that we're discussing here. So give us an idea of what that information might be.
When families were coming to us and trying to give us information, it could be the key lock for their front door. It could be that their mother always returns to the same spot in Douglas where she met her husband originally. Or that she's scared of police uniforms. A lot of people don't react well to police uniforms, but when they're in crisis, it's even more important. So for a while, it was myself and Michael that were holding most of this data in our heads and on notes, and it was very difficult. We've dealt with the same people over and over, and we're dealing with them at a crucial part of the time of their lives where we want to help. I know people think all we want to do is lock people up, and it's not. What we try to do is help people all the time, and we just felt like our hands were getting tired and we were letting people down, because it's very sad when their parents die
and they're vulnerable like that, yeah, it's difficult.
And that's the point, isn't it? We're talking about, if you mentioned, Mike, about the times when people go missing, and that they aren't often not wanted in relation to any sort of crime, but it is, as you say, just to try and help them and get them back to where they need to be.
Yeah, a lot of the time, people these days, they haven't done anything wrong. We're always pretty much the first emergency service that we're called. We get called to most things these days. And so we have to change how we deal with things. And they've done nothing wrong, these people. They're just at a crisis. They're at a very bad time. So if we can make that better for them, for their families, we can give them a peace of mind even for their families, which is what this allows to happen, then that can only be a good thing for the community. And
okay, so this is where Alexandra from PDMS comes in. We're talking about really some software that's been developed to allow people themselves and also their families, Alexandra, to pass the information on. How does it work?
So people have a few options for storing their information on the First Point community portal. I should point out that PDMS's philosophy is that it's your data. You're in charge of your own data. You're in control. It's not our data, it's your data. So there are 3 ways to sign up. A person can sign themselves up on firstpoint.signedup.im. Additionally, PDMS will be holding regular registration support sessions in the near future, and if you want help before those are established, you can get in touch with PDMS and we can help you register yourself. And if you are unable to create and manage your own profile, you can go ahead and talk to one of our charity partners who can create and manage a profile on your behalf.
So then what sort of information are people likely to put into this?
The information that can be stored on the system is information that the charities said their service users are likely to put for emergencies and what the emergency services personnel think is useful for emergency situations. So we have information such as the basics, first name, how do you contact a person, but also information such as what do they like to be known as, how do they communicate, are there important locations to a person that if they go missing they might gravitate towards. There's also the option for emergency contact details. The police would be able to access the system on their phones for searching through profiles, so it's just a click of a button and you can call someone's next of kin emergency contact right away. Also emergency medical details and basically a general area where if there's anything else you think that is important for the emergency personnel to know, you can put it on.
And the difference, Graham, with this information is that because the people themselves or their families, carers have put it in themselves, then you are allowed access to it.
Yes, the system's been designed as such so we can actually use our work phones, if you like, and access the data and obviously try and personalise our interaction with that person. So if we do find an example, let's give it a lady called Dorothy wandering the streets and maybe this lady has additional needs, such maybe has dementia or something similar, then at that point perhaps we could find a photograph of her on our system or a loose description. We'll find that on the system. If she's on the system, we'll be able to then find out she likes her to be called Dot, and she doesn't like people in high-vis clothing, and that she is part of maybe a nursing home somewhere, or she does have support from a family member, and we can really personalise the way that we deal with that person straight away. It's nothing to do with crime. It's nothing to do with any other sort of police work. It's purely putting that person at ease as quickly as possible. And if we can do that by a simple website, which is overcomplicated by data protection, then we've done something really well.
And Paddy, that just really, for the person involved, takes the fear out of it for them and hopefully makes your job that much easier.
Well, when we were dealing with families, because that's the front end for myself and Mike, it was really distressing, one, for the person that we'll call a missing person or the person in crisis, but for their family as well. They were really struggling to get that peace of mind. If they lost sight for 30 seconds even, it was a major issue for them. And I just think this will give us another avenue to help take the pressure off for the carers and the families as well.
And mentioned perhaps people with dementia. I mean, that just seems that's one of the most obvious, I suppose, when people are feeling highly agitated anyway, to have that information which could help put them at ease, Mike, would be so helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one avenue of this. We were speaking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who has autistic children, And when we explained what we were trying to achieve, she thought it was a fantastic idea, and she wants to sign her children up for this, so that, again, if they go missing, or how we deal with them, without stereotyping, a lot of autistic people don't like to be touched. If I don't know the person I'm dealing with is autistic, then I might just put my hands on, which is going to make that an awful lot harder for them. It's going to make, I'm trying to build relationships with the community. We're not trying to drop them down. So it makes it easier for them.
And Alexandra, you've been liaising directly with the charities that you mentioned. Just tell us which charities are on board so far.
Oh yes, we're working with the Alzheimer's Society, Isle of Man Live at Home schemes, Manx Blind Welfare Society, and the Manx Deaf Society. But if there are any other charities who are interested in becoming partners for this project, my door is always open.